I love that song. In case you guys didn't recognize it, that's Belief by John Mayer. My favorite lyric from that song is, "Belief is a beautiful armor, it makes for the heaviest sword." And I love that lyric because belief is, after all, responsible for where I am today and, more importantly, who I am. I was born in India, the youngest of 3 kids. And yeah, I know, I am really cute. And the day that I was born, my parents decided that they wanted to move to the United States. And that's a very difficult decision for people to make. My parents were pharmacists in India. Now, it's a little different in India. You can be a pharmacist as long as you have a store and some drugs, and then you just do whatever you want. And it was a good living. My parents did very well. But since I have 2 older sisters, they wanted the best for them. And females don't do well in India. So they decided that coming to the United States would give their kids the best chance for success. And so they applied for the visa, and it took about 7 years. And in that time, we were brought up on American pop culture as best as is available in India, which basically comes down to reruns of Full House. So as I was on the flight to the United States, I knew 2 things about America. It's that everybody was white there, and everybody was really happy. And I feel like that's true, right? And so we touched down in St. Louis, Missouri. And we stayed with my aunt, who was a physician in West County, which is a suburb of St. Louis. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with St. Louis, but St. Louis is one of the greatest documentations of white flight that's ever existed in this country. It means that the city itself is very diverse, but the suburbs, especially the rich parts, are pretty much all white. And that's where my aunt lived, and that's where we lived. So it was a very different place for me, because here we were, very poor and very not white, in this white society that I didn't know existed out there. And when we started school, my siblings and I were pretty much the only people of color in the school itself. And that leads to a lot of problems, because when you introduce people that nobody else recognizes, you're the outcast. And so as a 7-year-old, it was like very hard for me, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. I remember I started getting like racist overtones thrown at me that I didn't even comprehend, and that didn't even make sense at all. Like, I remember walking home one day, and these kids started mouthing fake Chinese to me, and I was just so confused. And I got home, and I told my mom, and she was like, "That doesn't even make sense. We're Indian." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that doesn't make sense, yeah." So as a result, I became very secluded and became very on my own, until my parents realized that there wasn't much economic opportunity for 2 people of high school education in a very rich part of the suburbs of St. Louis. And so we decided to move to Jersey City, New Jersey. And here, finally, I was with people like me, which is poor and pretty much not white. And I loved it. I finally belonged, because instead of kids hating me for being different, they hated me for the right reasons. And I hated them for the same reason. So it was fantastic. And now I'd finally had some friends, and I started doing everything I could to be the best friend that I could. Now, if you're not familiar with most Indian or Asian households, the number 1 priority is always education. So that was always the rule in my family. It's that you got good grades, and then whatever else you did, whatever. And so I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. So I started hanging out with my friends, but kept getting good grades. And then eventually I started doing stuff with my friends, staying out later, doing questionable things, and my grades started to drop. But see, the thing is, I'm pretty street smart. And so I started realizing that report cards get mailed home. So I would just grab the mail before my parents did. And this continued. And as a result, I got dumber and dumber and dumber. And my parents didn't know. Like, they just didn't know. And the neighborhood where we lived, in the ghetto of Greenville, Lafayette, like, nobody knows. Like, parent-teacher conferences aren't really held, so my parents were none the wiser. And as a result, by the time I started high school, I had a very firm, very tight crew that we did everything together except do well in school. And so I started at Dickinson High School, which, if you can imagine an inner city high school that you see on TV, like, that's exactly what it is. Metal detectors everywhere, cops roaming the halls, and those cops are needed because knives, batons, whatever you want, we have it and we used it. And you know, things got really bad, but I didn't know because in my mind, I had friends, I could do whatever I wanted. But then one day, I lost track and I got home and the report card was there, and I saw the look of just betrayal in my parents' eyes. And you don't know guilt until you've seen Indian guilt. It just hits right here, and it stays. And at that point, for me, I couldn't take it, because yeah, I had these friends. I could hold my own with anybody, but I couldn't look my parents in the eye. And how can a son do that to parents who sacrificed everything and are living in the ghetto just so that I have a chance? And so I started to think, and I thought, what can I do? And I thought, I need to get away. And so I knew that the testing exam to transfer into the local magnet school in my district was coming up. I knew I wasn't that smart, but I was going to give it my damn best shot. So I studied nonstop for, I think, a month, and I just slammed it out of the park. Thank you. The problem is, now I'm at the smart school with maybe a 6th grade literacy level and not much else. You know, I somehow got really lucky on this one exam. And so here I found myself as the outcast all over again. Like, if I could have picked a fight with anybody in that high school, multiple people, had no problem. But what good was that gonna do me? I was the outcast again, because I was that dumb kid. And once again, I started to isolate myself. I started to become the loner again. And then in my chemistry class, my teacher started to pay attention to this. And he asked me one day, he's like, what's going on? And he's like, you know, nobody really likes me. I'm not smart. I can't answer questions. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. And he told me, you're the only one who thinks that. Nobody else cares. Because all these kids here, they're trying to do what they can to make it. So if you think they're spending their time hating on you, that's on you. It's not on them. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. And the other bit of advice that he gave me was, you'll find that if you surround yourself with people who want to better themselves, you'll better yourself as a result. And I took that to heart. And so I joined the track team. I joined the science research club. And as a result, I started making friends who, while we all hung out together, we also used to do things like maybe do homework every now and then. Maybe we'd read a book. And instead of picking a fight with somebody, maybe we would just talk. And life-changing, like, for real. And as a result, I started taking part in these local events. I started taking advantage of everything that my high school offered that really my other high school could have offered too, that I just wasn't seeking out. And I started taking part in all these science fairs. And in my junior year, I won silver medal for some computer thing that I can't even remember. But apparently it impressed somebody. And as a result, I got a full scholarship to go to a conference for minorities in Atlanta. And there, amongst 1,000 other kids who had done something just like me, we were all lectured to by professors from Morehouse who just pretty much told us the exact same thing my teacher had told me a year ago. And he just said, nobody is here looking out for you. You're the only one looking out for you. So if you don't do it, and if you don't believe in yourself, why would you think that you would succeed? And I came home from that conference, and I told myself that I had no choice but to succeed, that I had to believe in myself. And so I started grinding my gears, and I realized I really liked research. I really liked these little projects that I was doing. I dug my heels in, and a year later, I had a full scholarship to Rutgers University. Thank you. The thing is, I thought college was going to be hard. No. After everything that I'd done in high school, and like all the crap that I dealt with, college was easy. I just steamrolled through it. So when I started medical school in Newark, I just knew that I could succeed because I had no doubt in my mind that I belonged there, because I knew I belonged there. And we started a group because I knew that as hard as it was for me, it's much harder for other people out there too, because my parents believed in me, and they always believed in me. But in some areas, that's not even an option. So we started going out to schools within the Newark community, and all we did was tell freshmen and sophomores that, hey, you know, this could happen to you. See that medical school over there? That could be your playground one day. And kids started listening to us. And as a result, Barringer High School in Newark, which is probably one of the worst high schools in the world, had 3 extra people go to college that year, and then 4 more the year after that, and 5 more the year after that. And as a physician now, practicing in Philadelphia, I try to employ the same values because at the end of the day, it all comes down to belief. And whether you believe you can do something, that's the only thing that matters. Thank you.